You are bleeding power every time someone gets under your skin. Every emotional reaction, every flash of anger, every moment where someone's comment ruins your day. You are handing them the remote control to your nervous system. They push a button. You react. They win. This is not a video about breathing exercises or positive affirmations. This is not about suppressing your emotions until you explode like a pressure cooker at a family dinner. This is about psychological sovereignty, the ability to stand in the center of chaos, insults, provocations, betrayals, and remain unmoved, not because you're numb, but because you've built something inside yourself that cannot be touched by external noise. Marcus Aurelius commanded the Roman Empire. He faced wars, plagues, treachery, and incompetent senators. Yet he wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." He understood what most people never grasp. Your anger is not caused by other people. Your anger is caused by your belief that other people have power over your internal state. Right now, you are walking around with exposed nerves. Someone criticizes your work. Nerve hit. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Nerve hit. Someone disrespects you in a meeting. Nerve hit. You are a puppet, and everyone around you has access to your strings. This makes you predictable. And in the game of power, predictability is death. The Stoics understood this 2,000 years ago. Epictetus, who was born a slave and became one of history's greatest philosophers, taught, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Jung called it psychological integration, the ability to contain your shadow, your rage, your chaos, without letting it control you. Machiavelli observed that princes who showed anger were immediately exploited by those who recognized the pattern. You are about to learn the 7 ruthless principles of emotional invincibility. These are not coping mechanisms. These are weapons. Weapons that transform you from a reactive animal into a sovereign ruler of your own mind. We will dissect the anatomy of anger, rewire your psychological operating system, and give you the concrete protocols to become untouchable. But understand this, once you cross this threshold, you will lose friends. People are comfortable with your reactions because it confirms their power over you. When you stop reacting, they will escalate, they will poke harder, and when that fails, they will either respect you or disappear. Are you ready for that cost? Let's begin the surgery. Law 1. The observer's throne. You are not your anger. You are the awareness watching the anger. This distinction is everything. Right now, when someone insults you, you merge with the emotion. You become the anger. You are drowning in it. The first law is learning to sit on a throne inside your mind and watch your emotions like weather passing through a valley. Jung called this the observing ego, the part of consciousness that can witness your psychological processes without being consumed by them. In meditation traditions, they call it the watcher. In Stoic philosophy, it's the rational faculty that stands above the passions. The neuroscience confirms this. Brain imaging shows that when you label an emotion, I notice I'm feeling anger, activation shifts from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex. You are literally moving from the reptilian brain to the human brain. Imagine 2 scenarios. Person A gets insulted in a meeting. Within milliseconds, his face flushes, his voice rises, he defends himself aggressively. He has become the anger. Person B gets insulted in the same meeting. Inside his mind, he notices, "Interesting. I'm experiencing a surge of adrenaline. My chest is tight. There's a thought. This person is trying to undermine me." And there's an impulse to attack back. He feels all of it, but he is not controlled by it. He is sitting on his throne, watching the weather. Person A looks weak, reactive, and predictable. Person B appears calm, calculated, and dangerous. Why? Because he has introduced a gap, a space of consciousness between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz, wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Starting today, practice the 3-second throne technique. When someone says something that triggers you, do not respond immediately. Take 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, mentally narrate what you're experiencing. I notice anger rising. I notice the impulse to defend. I notice tension in my jaw. You are not suppressing. You are observing. You are separating the watcher from the watched. Train this in low-stakes situations first. Someone cuts you off in traffic, 3-second throne. Your colleague makes a passive-aggressive comment, 3-second throne. Build the muscle in practice so it's automatic in battle. If you continue to merge with your emotions, you will remain a slave to external triggers. Your enemies will play you like a piano. They will know exactly which keys to press. But when you claim the observer's throne, you become unpredictable. You become powerful, because they cannot control what they cannot provoke. Law 2. The Indifference Doctrine. You are wasting your finite life force on infinite nonsense. Someone criticizes your clothes. Someone disagrees with your political opinion. Someone doesn't text you back fast enough, and you burn emotional energy on it. Energy that could be building your empire, mastering your craft, or protecting what actually matters. The Stoics divided everything into 2 categories: things within your control and things outside your control. Epictetus taught his students to write this distinction on the wall and consult it daily. Your opinions, your choices, your actions, your character, these are within your control. Other people's opinions, the weather, the past, how others treat you, these are outside your control. And the Stoics had a brutal doctrine. If something is outside your control, it is beneath your concern. This is not passivity. This is strategic resource allocation. Marcus Aurelius commanded legions and made life or death decisions. He couldn't waste energy being upset that Senator X talked behind his back or that the Germanic tribes didn't respect Roman authority. He had to focus his power on what he could actually influence. Consider 2 employees at the same company. Employee A hears a rumor that his co-worker said something negative about him. He spends the next 3 days running mental simulations, crafting defensive speeches, feeling resentful. His work quality drops. His mood is contaminated. He's hemorrhaging power. Employee B hears the same rumor. He thinks, is this within my control? No. Does it affect my actual work or goals? No. Does it require a response? No. He dismisses it in 5 seconds and returns to his work. At the end of the year, Employee B gets promoted. Employee A is still fighting ghosts. The brutal truth, 90% of what bothers you is irrelevant to your actual life trajectory. But you treat it like it's vital. You are a king worrying about what the servants whisper in the kitchen. You are a general obsessing over what foot soldiers think of his haircut. It's beneath you. Create the indifference filter. Every time something bothers you, ask 3 questions. Is this within my control? If no, automatic discard. Will this matter in 5 years? If no, automatic discard. Does engaging with this move me toward my goals? If no, automatic discard. Write these questions on a card. Carry it with you. For 1 week, run every irritation through this filter. You will discover that 90% of your emotional disturbances are voluntary. You are choosing to be disturbed by things that don't merit disturbance. If you continue to invest emotional energy in everything, you will remain poor in power. Energy is currency. The powerful spend it on conquest. The weak spend it on complaints. Choose. Law 3. The insult immunity. When someone insults you, they are not describing you. They are describing themselves. This is not a comforting platitude. This is clinical psychology. Projection is one of the most documented defense mechanisms in psychoanalytic literature. People project their own insecurities, fears, and shadow qualities onto others because they cannot face those qualities in themselves. Jung wrote extensively on this. He said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But the inverse is also true. Everything that people criticize in you reveals what they are at war with internally. The person who calls you arrogant is struggling with their own insignificance. The person who calls you cold is terrified of their own vulnerability. The person who accuses you of being manipulative is angry that they lack influence. Once you understand this mechanism, insults lose their sting. In fact, they become diagnostic tools. Someone insults you, and instead of feeling wounded, you think, interesting, what psychological wound does this reveal in them? Robert Greene writes about this in The 48 Laws of Power. Law 36. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. But the deeper application is understanding that attacks often come from envy. The person who has what they want doesn't waste time attacking you. Only the envious attack. Picture this. A successful entrepreneur launches a new product. Online, someone writes, "This is overpriced garbage. This guy is a fraud." The entrepreneur has 2 choices. Choice A. Get angry. Write a defensive response. And lose sleep. Feel wounded. Choice B. Think. This person is clearly not my customer. Their venom suggests they're struggling financially or emotionally. I will ignore this and focus on the 10,000 happy customers. Which response is powerful? Which response wastes energy on someone who will never contribute to your success? Practice the mirror technique. For the next 30 days, every time someone criticizes or insults you, write down the insult in a journal. Then write next to it, what does this reveal about their internal state? Do not defend. Do not engage. Simply observe. You will start to see patterns. The same person who calls you selfish is always complaining they're not appreciated. The same person who calls you fake is obsessed with their own image. You're not collecting ammunition to attack them back. You're developing X-ray vision into human psychology. If you continue to internalize attacks, you will be sculpted by the opinions of wounded people. Your self-image will be a collage of other people's projections. But when you recognize that attacks are confessions, you become immune, not hardened, not numb, immune, because you understand the mechanism and it no longer has power. Law 4. The response hierarchy. You think you need to respond to everything. You don't. In fact, most of the time, responding at all is a tactical error. Silence is the most powerful response in your arsenal, but you've been trained since childhood to fill every gap, defend every accusation, correct every misunderstanding. Machiavelli observed that princes who spoke too much revealed too much. Caesar was famous for his calculated silences. When conspirators expected him to rage, he went quiet. That silence was more terrifying than any threat because it was unpredictable. Neuroscience backs this up. When you respond immediately to a provocation, you are operating from your amygdala, the fear and rage center. When you pause, you give your prefrontal cortex time to engage, the strategic analytical center. The pause is not weakness. The pause is intelligence gathering time. Consider the response hierarchy. It's 5 levels from most powerful to least powerful. Level 5, most powerful. Strategic silence. You say nothing. The other person's provocation hangs in the air. They are forced to sit with their own aggression. Silence communicates. You are not important enough for a response. Level 4, the redirect. You don't address the provocation at all. You simply continue with the original conversation as if nothing happened. This communicates. Your attempt to derail this conversation is invisible to me. Level 3, the clarifying question. Can you explain what you mean by that? You force them to articulate their aggression explicitly, which most people cannot do without sounding foolish. Level 2, the calm agreement. You might be right. This disarms them completely because they expected defense. When you agree, they have nothing to fight against. Level 1, least powerful, the defensive reaction. This is where most people live. Someone attacks, they defend. This confirms to the attacker that they hit the target. Scenario. In a meeting, a colleague says, "Your proposal is pretty naive. Have you even thought this through?" The weak response. "Of course, I've thought it through. Let me explain all my research." The powerful response. 3-second pause. Interesting perspective. Then you return to your presentation. Or complete silence, direct eye contact, then continue speaking as if they hadn't said anything. The colleague expects engagement. They expect defense. When you deny them that reaction, you create psychological dissonance. They are left holding their own aggression with nowhere to direct it. For the next 2 weeks, implement the silence challenge. Every time someone provokes you, whether it's a criticism, an insult, or a passive-aggressive comment, your default response is silence. Not cold silence, not aggressive silence, simply a 3 to 5 second pause, perhaps a slight nod, and then either continue with the original topic or walk away. Track how often you want to defend yourself. That urge reveals how much you still need external validation. The goal is to feel the urge, recognize it, and choose silence anyway. If you continue to react defensively to every provocation, you will remain predictable. Your enemies will know exactly how to manipulate you. But when you master strategic silence, you become a sphinx. People cannot read you, they cannot control you, and in the game of power, inscrutability is armor. Law 5. The anger alchemy. You think anger is a liability. It's not. Anger is fuel. The problem is that most people burn their fuel explosively instead of channeling it into sustained propulsion. You get angry and you lash out. Explosive burn. No productive outcome. You need to learn anger alchemy, the process of transmuting raw emotional energy into strategic action. The Stoics didn't teach suppression. They taught transformation. Seneca wrote extensively on anger in De Ira. He argued that anger itself is a natural response to injustice or threat, but expressing it thoughtlessly is self-destructive. The key is to capture the energy and redirect it. Jung understood this through his concept of active imagination and shadow integration. Your anger contains information. It reveals what you value, where your boundaries are, and what threats require your attention. The goal is not to eliminate anger, but to harness it. Think about two fighters. Fighter A gets angry in the ring and starts swinging wildly. He's emotionally compromised. His opponent exploits the openings. Fighter B gets angry, feels the surge of adrenaline, and channels it into focused, calculated strikes. The anger gives him intensity without sacrificing precision. He's terrifying because his rage is controlled. In your life, someone betrays you. The explosive response: send an angry email, burn the bridge, feel righteous for 24 hours, regret it for 24 months. The alchemical response: feel the anger fully. Let it show you that you were too trusting, that your boundaries were unclear, that you need better vetting systems. Then, when you're calm, you make a strategic decision. Maybe you cut them off. Maybe you use them for your purposes while limiting their access. Maybe you learn the lesson and apply it elsewhere. The anger was the catalyst, but calculation was the chemist. Introduce the Alchemy Journal. When you feel anger, do not act on it immediately. Instead, open your journal and answer these 4 questions. What is this anger revealing? What value of mine was violated? What boundary was crossed? What is the useful information here? What do I need to change? What pattern do I need to recognize? What is the strategic response, not the emotional response, the calculated action that serves my interests? What is the transformation? How does this experience make me wiser, stronger, or more strategic? Do this for every anger episode for 30 days. You will notice that the anger itself becomes less intense because it's being metabolized into wisdom instead of being vented into useless explosions. If you continue to express anger reactively, you will damage relationships, create enemies, and reveal your psychological weaknesses. But when you master anger alchemy, you become a blacksmith. You take the raw heat of emotion and forge it into weapons and tools. Your enemies will wound you, and you will use that wound to make yourself deadlier. Law 6. The Expectation Massacre. You are suffering because you believe in fairness. You believe people should behave reasonably, honor their commitments, respect your boundaries, and reciprocate your goodwill. This belief is the source of 90% of your emotional disturbance. Because reality does not conform to your belief system. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Begin each day by telling yourself, 'Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness.'" He wasn't being pessimistic. He was being realistic. When you expect people to be difficult, selfish, and unreliable, you are never surprised. And when you're never surprised, you're never disturbed. This is not cynicism. This is strategy. Machiavelli wrote, "A man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything must necessarily come to grief among so many who are not good." He wasn't saying, "Be evil." He was saying, "Stop expecting goodness from a world that doesn't operate on your principles. You have been sold a narrative. Work hard, be kind, treat people well, and life will reward you." This is a children's story. The real world operates on power dynamics, incentive structures, and self-interest. Sometimes being good is rewarded. Often it's exploited. Your emotional stability cannot depend on outcomes being fair. Example: you work overtime for months on a project. Your colleague, who contributed minimally, takes credit in the presentation. You have two responses. Response A: this isn't fair. I deserved that recognition. You spend weeks bitter, angry, and demotivated. Response B: of course they took credit. They're operating in their self-interest. What can I learn from this? Next time I present my own work, or I document my contributions publicly, or I find an environment where merit is actually rewarded. Response A is the fairness trap. You are angry at reality for not conforming to your expectations. Response B is strategic adaptation. You accept the world as it is and adjust your behavior accordingly. Implementation protocol. Conduct the Expectation Massacre. Write down 10 expectations you have about how people should behave. Examples: people should keep their word. My hard work should be recognized. If I'm kind to someone, they'll be kind back. Now, one by one, cross them out. Not because you're giving up on principles, but because you're releasing the belief that reality owes you anything. Replace each expectation with a strategic principle. I will keep my word because it serves my reputation, not because I expect others to reciprocate. For 30 days, when you feel angry or disappointed, check: is this because reality violated one of my fairness expectations? If yes, you know the solution. Let the expectation die. If you continue to believe in fairness, the world will perpetually disappoint you. You will be angry at life itself. But when you massacre your expectations and accept that most people operate from self-interest, fear, and unconscious patterns, you become liberated. You can then be kind, generous, and principled. Not because you expect rewards, but because you choose those values strategically. And that is true power. Law 7. The Sovereignty Protocol. The final law is the most important. Everything we've discussed is tactics. But tactics without foundation are useless. You need to build something inside yourself that is so solid, so grounded, so self-sufficient, that external chaos cannot penetrate it. This is what the Stoics called the inner citadel. This is what Jung called individuation. This is psychological sovereignty. Most people are psychologically homeless. They have no center. Their self-worth comes from external validation. Their mood depends on how others treat them. Their identity is a patchwork of other people's opinions. When you are psychologically homeless, every insult is a threat to your existence because you have no ground to stand on. The sovereign individual has built an internal kingdom. This kingdom has walls, gates, and a throne. Not everyone gets access. Not every opinion gets through the gates. And at the center, on the throne, sits a version of yourself that knows its own value, independent of external confirmation. Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, requires integrating your shadow, confronting your unconscious patterns, and differentiating yourself from the collective. This is not selfish. This is necessary, because you cannot serve others from a position of internal weakness. You cannot lead from a place of psychological dependence. The Stoics built their inner citadel through daily practices. Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations as a dialogue with himself, constantly reminding himself of his principles. Epictetus taught his students to review their day each evening, assessing where they maintained self-control and where they lost it. Imagine two men receive the same devastating news. Their business partner embezzled funds and disappeared. Man A collapses. His entire identity was tied to that business. He feels betrayed, victimized, destroyed. He spends years bitter and broken. Man B feels the shock, the anger, the loss, but within 48 hours, he's making calls, exploring legal options, planning his next venture. Why? Because his identity was never dependent on that single business. His internal kingdom remains intact, even when external circumstances collapse. Build your inner citadel with the Sovereignty Protocol, a daily practice in 4 parts. Part 1. Morning Philosophy. 10 minutes. Every morning, read a passage from Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, or Seneca. Then, write 3 sentences on what principle you will practice that day. Example: today I will practice non-reaction. When provoked, I will wait 3 seconds before responding. Part 2. Boundary Reinforcement. Evening. Each night, reflect. Where did I allow someone to invade my psychological space today? Where did I lose my center? Write it down, not to shame yourself, but to learn. Part 3. Shadow Integration. Weekly. Once a week, journal on: what emotion did I suppress this week? What part of myself am I rejecting? What would it look like to integrate that part without being controlled by it? Part 4. Value Clarification. Monthly. Once a month, rewrite your core values. Not what you think you should value, what you actually value. Then audit your life. Are your actions aligned with these values? If not, what needs to change? This protocol builds psychological muscle. Over time, you develop a self-concept that is internally generated, not externally validated. You know who you are, what you stand for, and what you will not tolerate. And once you have that, no one can shake you. If you do not build your inner citadel, you will remain a psychological refugee, dependent on the validation and approval of others. Every criticism will be an existential threat. Every rejection will shatter you. But when you build your kingdom within, you become unshakable. People will test you. They will provoke you. They will try to tear you down. And you will stand there, unmoved, because you are standing on ground they cannot touch. But here is the truth no one wants to hear. These 7 laws are useless if you don't confront the real enemy. And the real enemy is not the people who provoke you. The real enemy is inside you. You have 3 internal saboteurs that will undermine everything we've discussed. Enemy 1, the validation addict. You were trained from childhood to seek approval. Gold stars, parental praise, social media likes. You are psychologically wired to need external confirmation. Every time you resist reacting to a provocation, this part of you screams, "But they need to know I'm right. They need to apologize. They need to see I'm valuable." This is the voice of the validation addict, and it will sabotage your sovereignty. Enemy 2, the moral narcissist. You believe you are the good guy. You believe you are fair, kind, and reasonable. So when someone treats you unfairly, it's not just an inconvenience, it's an injustice that violates your self-image. You are not upset because they wronged you. You are upset because their behavior doesn't fit your narrative. This attachment to being the good person makes you fragile. True power requires accepting that you are not always good, not always right, and not always the victim. Enemy 3, the illusion of control. You think if you just explain yourself better, set clearer boundaries, or communicate more effectively, people will change. They won't. Most people are operating from unconscious patterns that have nothing to do with you. Your anger is often frustration that you cannot control their behavior. You must kill this illusion. You control yourself. That's it. Jung spent decades studying the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject and project onto others. He discovered that true psychological maturity requires integrating these rejected parts. Your rage, your selfishness, your cruelty, these are not enemies to be destroyed. They are energies to be integrated and directed. The man who has never acknowledged his own capacity for cruelty is shocked when he's betrayed. The man who has integrated his shadow thinks, of course, I understand betrayal because I understand the human capacity for self-interest, including my own. This integration is not about becoming a bad person. It's about becoming a whole person. The most dangerous men are not the ones who pretend to be saints. They are the ones who have met their demons, understood them, and learned to wield that darkness strategically. This is why Stoicism without shadow work is incomplete. You can memorize every maxim from Marcus Aurelius and still be emotionally reactive if you haven't done the internal archaeology. You must go into the basement of your psyche and meet the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. Ask yourself, what am I most afraid of being called? Weak, selfish, arrogant, boring. That word holds power over you because you've rejected that quality in yourself. The moment you can say, yes, I am capable of being selfish when my survival demands it, that word loses its power as an insult. The path to emotional invincibility is not building thicker armor. It's becoming so integrated, so self-aware, so comfortable with your own complexity that external opinions cannot destabilize you, because you have already met every part of yourself and made peace with it. This is the inner work. It is harder than any external tactic. It requires radical honesty, but it is the foundation of everything. So how do you begin? You don't need a monastery. You don't need a therapist. You don't need permission. You need a notebook, discipline, and the courage to be misunderstood. Here is the 30-day sovereignty protocol, the exact system for rewiring your psychology. Week 1. Observation without intervention. Your only job this week is to observe your emotional reactivity without trying to change it. Carry a small notebook. Every time someone bothers you, triggers you, or angers you, write down what happened, what emotion arose, what thought accompanied it, what you wanted to do. Do not judge yourself. Do not try to be better. Just observe. You are a scientist studying your own nervous system. By the end of week 1, you'll see patterns. Certain types of people trigger you. Certain situations provoke specific reactions. This is your psychological map. Week 2, the 3-second throne. Now you intervene. Every time someone provokes you, implement the 3-second pause. In those 3 seconds, mentally say, I notice I'm feeling emotion. I notice the impulse to reaction. Then choose your response consciously. It will feel mechanical at first. That's fine. You're building a new neural pathway. Do this 20 to 30 times this week. It will start to feel natural. Week 3. The indifference filter. This week, apply the 3-question filter to every irritation. Is this within my control? Will this matter in 5 years? Does engaging move me toward my goals? Keep a tally. How many things pass through the filter versus get discarded? your goal. Discard 70% or more. You will feel lighter. You will have more energy because you've stopped bleeding power into irrelevant conflicts. Week 4. The Citadel Build Final Week. Implement the Daily Sovereignty Protocol. Morning philosophy reading and intention setting. Evening boundary review. 1 shadow integration journaling session. By the end of this week, you should have a sustainable practice that maintains your emotional invincibility. The provocation test. Ask a trusted friend to deliberately provoke you in conversation. Nothing cruel, just mild challenges to your opinions. Practice remaining calm, asking clarifying questions, or responding with strategic silence. This is sparring. You need practice in low-stakes environments before high-stakes situations arise. The visualization protocol. Every morning, spend 2 minutes visualizing yourself in a potentially triggering situation. Someone insults you, betrays you, disrespects you. See yourself responding with calm, strategic silence. This is mental rehearsal. Athletes do this before competition. You should do this before daily life. The accountability metric. At the end of each day, rate yourself 1 to 10 on emotional sovereignty. Did you react impulsively? Did you maintain your center? Track this for 90 days. You will see objective improvement. This protocol works, but only if you execute it. Consciousness without action is masturbation. You now possess the 7 laws of emotional sovereignty. You understand the observer's throne, the Indifference Doctrine, insult immunity, the response hierarchy, anger alchemy, the Expectation Massacre, and the Sovereignty Protocol. These are not theories. These are weapons, but be warned. The moment you implement these laws, your social environment will resist. People are invested in your reactions because it confirms their power over you. When you stop reacting, they will escalate. They will poke harder. They will accuse you of being cold, distant, arrogant. They will try to guilt you back into your old patterns. This is the cost of sovereignty. You will lose relationships built on dysfunction. You will disappoint people who need you to be weak. You will be misunderstood by those who cannot comprehend internal strength, but you will also attract a different caliber of person. People who respect boundaries, people who value strength, people who recognize that your calm is not weakness, it's mastery. Can you stand alone if necessary? And can you endure being the villain in someone else's story? Because that is the price, and it is worth every penny. Emotional invincibility is not a feeling. It is a skill. It is built through daily practice, relentless self-observation, and the willingness to be uncomfortable. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire and faced death with equanimity. You face criticism at work and collapse. The tools are the same. The question is, will you use them? Pick up the sword, build the citadel, become untouchable.